Hello, everyone. We are here in the year of 2024. This is the first one. This is the first. This is the first Year Hero one that we're doing for this year, and I think both of us are sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I may or may not have still been feverish while I was doing the audio recording for this chapter. So, if it just doesn't make sense at some point, could someone please tell me so I can redo it? Because I'm honestly not entirely sure that I did the whole thing right. But we do have a few reviews that we can go through, so we're going to go ahead and get on that. Let's see.
All right, we're starting with Joke Zone.
I read the beginning of this one and it made me laugh.
Oh no. Sorry, hold on. Oh no, what we gonna do? The league wants Mina more than me and you. Oh no, what we gonna do? We gotta get her out of here. Hey, nice harmony. Look at you.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, I try not to, like, I'll see, like, who sends in reviews, and I try, like, not to read it too much, but I saw the beginning of that, and then I just kept going. I was like, oh, no.
Thank you for that precious moment,
That
Joe
was pretty amazing.
For everyone who didn't grow up watching VeggieTales,
You're missing out.
I'm sorry.
You're missing out.
Okay. Just thought of that song when rereading this chapter. First read through made me very worried for her and what you're going to do to her. I mean, you had the gumption to get Asuna killed, and that's something I still haven't gotten over. That's in Shattered Fragment specifically.
I remember. Yeah, that's right.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did do that. Like, I hadn't forgot that I did that, but I forgot that, like, there were quite a few people who were, like, upset with me for that.
Yeah, I forgot I was mad about you. Now I'm mad again.
Guys, what are you doing?
All right. Awesome that Kudai cleverly name-dropped One for All at the end of the press conference. That moment felt so cool. Also loved the jab at Endeavor leading to a temperature spike. Smart writing and smart comedy.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the Endeavor bit just kind of happened like as I was finishing writing that part of the story. I was like, this is too good not to do.
What's going to happen to Yang? Oh no, I have a bad feeling about this. Rhodey's goodbye was great. He better take the opportunity if he knows what's good for his remaining family. Also, Vegmina strikes again. Ha ha ha.
I don't get that. Vegmina? I don't.
Vegeta? Vegmina? I'm
I'm
guessing that's what I was guessing.
Okay, alright. Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that one to me, man. I'm sorry.
It could just because we're feverish.
I might be a little bit out of it still.
Sorry.
Yeah,
hey, we got the VeggieTales joke because that was just burned into our brains.
I was like, that's just like burned into the deepest recesses of our childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can be brought out at any moment.
And it gets stuck in my head all of the time when I'm talking to my kids.
Oh, no.
I know I went out of order on this, but this still got me excited for the coming chapters. See you next month, I guess, with Pokemon Warpath here. Now it'll have to be that long. Anyway, happy writing.
Yep. Yeah, each story will get updated once a month. But yeah, I hope we get to see you on the I think we'll be seeing him in the review section for Pokemon Warpath.
Nice. All right. Thank you, Joe
for your
Clone.
review.
All right, Light Hero Kaiser, most interesting, great chapter mate. Can't wait for more. Kaito, I quite enjoy the story now being cut into smaller stories.
I'm not really bothered that much.
I wonder why. Oh, that's right. You're reading a story with over 1,000 chapters.
You what? 1,000? Okay, see, people gave me crap for 100 chapters.
That's impressive.
That's that impressive is the word that will go. I'm like, if someone's written a story with 1,000 chapters, I'm like, are you okay?
Well,
do you do anything other than writing? Like, I do a lot of writing, but I do things other than writing.
Light. Yeah, so what? It helps that I was there near the start of that story.
Oh, okay.
Blade Hero Light and Bow Hero Impact signing out.
Wait, are you talking about One Piece, maybe? Because I know that's like over 1,000 episodes.
I don't know. He'll have to let us know.
Apparently that's like entering its final arc.
Dang.
Which I'm just kind of like, Attack on Titan said it was entering its final arc.
And then they kept.
We also had that final arc lasted like 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. Every time that it's over, it's not over. It's another season. All right. Thank you, Kaiser.
Thank you for your...
Last but not least today, we have Silly Kita.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a lot of things that happened. I think the best way to summarize how I feel about this chapter is, not going to lie, they had us in the first half meme.
Okay.
I say that in the sense that I expected a nice wind down chapter, which in some respects this was. It was the last few scenes that really took me by surprise, especially the press conference bit. But I'll get to that in a bit. Kudai getting a bit of humble pie from Mina was nice to see, and I honestly didn't expect that I would enjoy reading such an occurrence so much. But in retrospect, he kind of needed it. I probably would not be saying the same thing if it had come from anyone else. Not even from Ari, honestly. But it was about time that he got a good reminder that just because he's proven himself willing to put his life on the line for the sake of their duties, it doesn't mean that everyone else is going to be shielded from the possibility of that sacrifice. Bam, drop mic. I think Mina choosing to keep her scars is going to be something that helps to remind Kudai in the future that she's every bit as willing to go the distance as he is. Not just a badge of honor for her, as it were, even if she doesn't realize it yet.
Yeah. No, she mentioned it's like, hey, you know, like I kind of want, she's like, I want to have proof that, she's like, this isn't going to get in the way of my day to day. She's like, I like having proof that I can do this, that I can, you know, play in the same league as you, essentially.
The two of them continuing to lay out their cards on the table for transparency's sake with one another is a great example of healthy relationship goals and gives me confidence that even with the upcoming war arc inbound, they're going to become stronger together. Overall, the opening scene was very sweet and heartwarming. I love it. I almost feel like you're trying to convince yourself to like Endeavor with the way that you wrote him in this chapter. This is not a criticism, by the way. He still feels in character, and everything about his patterns of behavior concerning Kudai thus far give me no issue in this conduct for this chapter. I'm simply speaking on how given as we the audience given what we as an audience know about you and your feelings concerning this character, it almost feels as though you want to like Endeavor. Maybe I'm not communicating my thoughts very well, but this is as best as I can explain my thoughts on how the tone of this chapter felt.
No, I'm not trying to convince myself to like Endeavor. I guess it's interesting that you come across. Dog, stop! Stop trying to eat my couch.
She's not eating it. She's just getting it nice and juicy.
Yeah.
Just licking it. Go lay down. She's squaring up. She's like, what are you going to do about it, dude?
She's like, you going to come and move me? I could.
I'm going to stare you down with my one eye.
That pug has so much sass and just...
No, she's wagging her tail at you. Like, see? She's like, you love me. I'm cute. You'd never do a thing to me.
Watch me.
Sorry.
No, I am not trying. I am not trying to convince myself to like Endeavor. I'm never going to like Endeavor. But it's interesting. I mean, like, how do I put? Like, I'm not even trying to get you guys as an audience to like Endeavor. It's just that. How do I put this? Like, I think I go with like how Todoroki said it in that one episode where he's like, the hero Endeavor was amazing today, but I still can't forgive you for what you've done. So like, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at with all that.
Either way, you'll never take me alive. Endeavor should be in jail.
No, see, there
you go. I think most of us are in agreement with you there, my guy.
Yep.
Bakugo's continuing respect for Kudai, at least as Kai, continues to surprise me. Hearing that he now considers his classmates to be in a league above even All Might was pretty astounding to witness. I mean, he's not as obnoxious, for lack of a better word, about his admiration for All Might as Izuku, but it's still one of the main driving forces for his becoming a hero and character development in canon. I would quite say that he's tossed aside the goals that he set for himself when he envisioned him.
I wouldn't quite say.
Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna let you finish reading it because my eyes are glazing out.
Okay. I wouldn't quite say that he's tossed aside the goals that he set for himself when he envisioned himself becoming greater than the symbol of peace, but I am interested to see just how much more focused our explosive hero might become as a result of chasing after someone closer to him personally, yet outclasses him anew in terms of physical strength. I just can't see him cutting his image of surpassing All Might out of his head entirely, but still, it'll be a cool read, I think. Yeah, I mean, Bakugo's admiration of All Might, that's one of the things that carried him to UA. That's been too big a part of his life for him to completely get rid of that. Dog, I will throw you off that couch.
No dog, no pug abuse.
Sorry, my pug thinks she owns the house. But yeah. How do I put this? Like, I've definitely you never forget those first goals that you had. Like, I wrote my book. I had it released at the same age as Christopher Paolini released his first one. Obviously, the differences in our success were just incomparable. But I never forgot. Like, I never forgot, and I still haven't given up on wanting to shoot for that level of success. Like, I would, like, do I actually expect it to happen? No. But am I going to give it my best effort to try it anyways? Yes. My tastes have moved in different directions since my initial desire, my initial setting out as a writer. But I still remember those goals that I set for myself, and those are still very much a part of me. So I suppose if any part of me is going into that would be it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I guess so.
Okay. Let's see. The brief scene with Eri interacting with Weiss was cool, largely because I like seeing someone who has become a secondary main character, as far as I can tell, hanging out with one of the side characters and not just always being around the A-team. I feel like he used to make more of an effort with those kinds of interactions earlier on in the story, and I didn't realize how much I had started to miss that. I understand that a lot's been going on with the story as of late, but now I'm kind of hoping that we'll get to see more of those broader class interactions getting some screen time again. We should be getting some of that in this next chapter. Rhodey's farewell was less emotional than in the film, but I found it no less entertaining, given how you managed to change it up. Mind if I start a petition for Rhodey to become Team Lightning Drop's personal pilot when they all make it big?
Oh, that would be so cool.
I feel like there's a great load of comedic potential to be had if he's the one ferrying them wherever they need to go, especially if he gets to have a direct line to their comm devices mid-battle so he can provide colorful commentary and the like. Add Awkward into the mix, and there's a new comedy hour for any number of news stations that would want to host that. Hell, let's have Shukin in there, make it a regular chuckle fest.
Brilliant. That almost makes me wonder if they're not lining him up to do that in canon.
Be his pilot to get around. Maybe.
That's a solid point, guy.
That'd be interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Then again, I don't know what show would be able to rein in that level of sass and savagery.
Yeah, him and Akurui.
Oh my goodness. Ooh. That's a dangerous combination waiting to happen there. Oh man. Oh. Don't put new ideas in my head, guys. I have too many as it is. Let's see. Kai's original color scheme gets a nice send-off. I didn't even think about how cathartic that must have been for him, getting to put on the old uniform one more time. I imagine that in some ways it might have helped him to feel a little more like his old self for a few moments, as much as it was to help audiences recognize him more easily. I mean, he probably could have gotten away with doing the interviews in jeans and a collared shirt, but he chose to go for the old look one more time, right? Although, if that whole bit was just a setup for Izuku to go on another muttering tangent, I will salute it, because those always make me laugh. Also, he does raise some interesting points. Now I'm wondering what kind of limited edition merch we might see for our heroes in the future. Assuming that they live that long. Honestly, no. Like that wasn't a setup for a Deku Mutter Storm, as they're called. But I mean, he still does. Like, it's interesting because like he does those less and less as the show goes on. But I still wanted to throw one in every now and again. But like that wasn't the point of this whole setup. It was a happy byproduct. Let's see. One for All gets name dropped in public. Honestly, this was genius. The existence of One for All being kept a secret was always kind of contingent on All for One not telling anyone other than the Doctor and Shigaraki about it. But if it suited any of them, they could have used it as a way to paint All Might in the light of someone who keeps secrets from the public, then blow it up to the point where citizens start to suspect him of being a fraud. Huh. Why didn't All for One ever do that? That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know, they kind of talk about how, like, All For One is very dispassionate. Like, he's not
necessarily vindictive. He's just calculating.
Yeah.
That's something that
I mean, if pushed hard enough, he could definitely take a revenge mindset. Because, like, when he's talking to All Might when they're having their rematch in the Camino Ward, he's like, yeah, I killed your master, but you took way more from me. He's like, no, he's like, you know what? No, I think I'm gonna be the one to kill you now. But even then, he just kind of has to think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
And, like, he doesn't really throw a whole lot of emotion into it.
He doesn't sit there and simmer.
Yeah.
Because I always forget Shoto's brother's name.
Dobby.
Dobby.
Toya.
Like, that's more of a Toya thing to do.
Okay. All right.
He's more like, how can I
tear him down?
Emotionally destroy you?
Although, I don't know, because All For One, he specifically found All Might's master, tracked down her family tree, and then picked out her grandson to be his apprentice, and that was his form of...
But it's more calculating, though. It's because it's to achieve a goal. With Toya, it's, you hurt me, and I've been simmering about it for the last however many years, and I want to make you hurt just as much. Not because he doesn't have a specific agenda other than that. That's his whole agenda.
Yeah.
Is to harm as he's been harmed. And so it's different.
Okay.
One is more calculating a chess match, and the other is 100% emotionally driven.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's similar but not the same.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Goes on to say, either way, now it's Kurai's narrative that's been fed to the masses, and since it's actually somewhat based in truth, I doubt anyone's going to look too hard at it. Even if the League tried to sell everyone the actual truth at this point, it's too similar to what's already been presented, which would probably lead most people to dismiss their claims as them trying to cut Kurai's legs out from under him at his moment of triumph because, well, villain shenanigans. Unlike Endeavor, Kurai has literally zero moral demerits working against him in the public's eye. He even went so far as to prove his dedication to justice by imprisoning his own mother. If they tried to call him out on a moral standpoint, as a liar or some such, I just don't see it working out very well. Maybe that could change over time, but as of right now, he's effectively made it so that he doesn't have to hide his extra powers from the world at large without ratting out All Might in the process. Really cool move on his/the Vestiges part. The Vestiges came up with the idea. It wasn't Kurai's idea originally. He told everyone in Class 1A because he's like, no, they deserve to know the truth. He's like, honestly, I question, like, he kind of mentioned, like, I question why we need to keep the secret anymore, but out of respect for Deku and All Might, he, more for Deku's sake than anything, he was like, all right, I'll keep my mouth shut about this, but now he has a way to let the truth out without letting the whole truth out, kind of thing. I feel like Silver's gonna have something to say about that. He's gonna be like, oh, he's lying to them by omission. Yeah, well, guess what, Silver, that happens. Let's see. Twice being twice will never not be funny. I know this is a long shot, but if Akuduru could psychoanalyze him at some point, I think everyone other than Twice would be in for a good time.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, man, can you imagine Akuduru, like, sitting in a room with this guy, playing good cop and bad cop just on the flip of a dime?
Sounds, honestly, like you need to write it.
Oh, my goodness. Like, oh. Stop giving me ideas, guys!
It's their job.
Oh, man. Excuse me. Yikes, Cinder's pissed. I mean, I get it, but you kind of did it to yourself, lady. With that said, I do wonder what history she and Dabi share. They seem to be friends at the very least, though I use that term kind of loosely given Dabi's lack of sanity. Will we eventually get a look at how they first got to know each other? I feel like there's something of a story to be had there. Yes and yes. I will get to how they met each other and what their story is eventually. But, in due time. Let's see. Also, League of Villains be targeting Mina instead of Kurai directly. I'm worried. I honestly don't see Kurai being broken by her dying if it came to that. Not in the sense that it wouldn't hurt him at all, but you very extensively covered a full arc of him losing his mind and learning how to put it back together. So I just don't see a repeat of that happening.
That said, I'm not putting it past you to try and pull the rug out from under us and kill Mina instead. Kurai would never be the same after the fact, but I just can't see him falling to pieces again, at least not for very long. All the same, this development does concern me. I mean, yeah, it's a good, like, that's a good point, because, like, yeah, you can't retread the same territory too many times.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've kind of covered, like, Kurai's slowly lost his mind over the course of several years for you guys, over the course of most of this year for him. But now he's kind of like finally putting finally put the pieces back together. And speaking from personal experience, after you've put the pieces back together, one of two people is the result. One, somebody that's way too easy to take apart again, or somebody who's much more difficult to take apart. And Kurai certainly falls into that latter category.
Okay.
You know, once he learned, like, he never has to learn the same lesson twice. He gets his mistake, he has the experience, and then he doesn't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it would be, yeah, like, without going into spoilers, I think it could be interesting to see what would happen to Kurai if Mina were to die. Am I going to kill Mina? You'll have to keep reading to find out. Also, Toga can go die in a marsh pit. Bonus points if it's Akaduru who dumps her in there.
Same, bro.
Yeah, you're not wrong, man. I want more Akaduru content, can you tell? Let's see. Mataris, what did you get the doctor to come up with? I know you. You wouldn't let things get too easy for our heroes. What did you do this time? Well, obviously, I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I think you guys will like it. Let's see. As always, I have enjoyed this story immensely. Now I'm off to read Pokemon Warpath. See you guys in the review section for the new story.
Woo!
Cool. All right. Look forward to having you there, man.
Thank
That's
you,
it for everybody. Yeah, thank you, Silikita. We'll go ahead and hand this off to the audio chapter. Again, if like it just doesn't make sense at any point, please tell me, so that way I can go back and correct it.
I've been wandering in my mind lately. I've been looking for a place to rest my head, for the road that lies ahead. Always fighting for the ones beside me. You could try it, but their hearts are far from dead. You will believe it. I look at fear in the eye, yes, we met before. Staring every lie, someone's at the door. You keep walking the line, I stuck to the floor. Nothing wrong in my mind, I've always wanted more. I've been walking on coals high for my whole life. Gotten better to bruise just to get it right. Climbing every hilltop through pain and strife. But when my summit is reached, I'll be out of sight. And I'll keep holding on, building the life that I've been dreaming. Holding on, carrying my heart to the end. And then I'll see who was wrong. Will I reach the heights I'm scaling? I'll rise above, still in the fire within. Still in the fire within.
Reunions. Kurai stood outside of Class 1A's dorm, feelings of longing and nostalgia watching over him as he looked at the living complex. It hadn't really been so long since he'd stepped foot inside the building, but to him it felt as though a lifetime had passed him by. Adding to the feeling was the thought that when he last left campus, he had been an almost different person entirely. "Hey," Mina said softly. She squeezed his hand and looked up at him. "You okay?" "Yeah," he nodded with a wobbly grin. "Sorry, I didn't think this was going to be so emotional for me." It was nearly 8 in the morning, and in spite of the fact that they had managed to get some sleep on the plane ride, the time differences between Japan and Otheon had left the group feeling severely jet-lagged. The additional detail that they had only been able to sleep in brief shifts at the police station while they took turns filing their mission reports with the available detectives did not help their energy levels either.
It had taken most of the night, following their escape from the media to the police station that handled most of the reports from UA faculty and hero students, so to see the sun rising when all they wanted to do was crash on their beds was a sight that just somehow made them feel even more tired. It's weird, isn't it? Ari asked, drawing the couple's attention to her. She didn't look at them as she went on to say, I remember the day I came here, for the funeral. In the future, UA was nothing more than a charred spot on the map after Shigaraki's forces burned it to the ground. The last time I saw it in my future, buildings were collapsing, there was fire and death everywhere. And after that, growing up on the run, I felt like that was all I could remember of this place. But when I came back and walked on campus for the first time in this era, it felt like almost nothing at all had changed. Except for me. Like we're a couple of strangers walking through wearing our old faces as a disguise to blend in. Could I summarize, leading the other One for All inheritor to nod in agreement. And here I thought Tokuyami was the master of melodramatics in our class. Wise deadpan as she and Bakugo walked past the trio, apparently having grown tired of waiting for them to get moving again. We've all been up for far too long, so I suggest we start moving if we want to get a solid bit of rest. Come on, Mina told Kurta as she squeezed his hand again. It's time to come home. And if that just didn't put the biggest smile on his face. Home, he repeated, liking the feeling of the word leaving his mouth. As Mina tugged him along, he made sure to add in a voice that was only loud enough for her to hear, Mind you, my home is wherever you happen to be, UA or not. Then it was her turn to wear a cheek-stretching smile as they made their way up the steps and into the building they shared with their friends. He didn't see anyone in the lounge area, which would have been unusual if not for the fact that most of them would have only just gotten in from their own missions, and were likely taking a well-deserved rest. Those who had forced themselves to get up early were probably doing their normal morning routines, such as working out or getting ahead, or caught up on their homework. Guess that means I could sneak into my room, catch a few Z's before people notice I'm back, he thought with a tired grin. Surprise! Mother Shenron! He yelped as the room was suddenly flooded with people streaming in from the kitchen, laundry rooms, and even the bathing areas, until all of his classmates were standing in a rough circle, with Eri and Izuku wearing the biggest smiles in the bunch. You guys are going to give me a heart attack and kill me again one of these times! Turning to Mina, who had burst into an uncontrollable fit of laughter, he quickly added, You set this up! Told you I planned a surprise party. She giggled as she doubled over with merriment. To their classmates, she said, Please tell me one of you recorded that. Got you covered, said a familiar voice that Kurai never would have expected to hear on UA's campus. Wait, is that? Good to see you again, Kurai, Tensei Ida said as he strode out from behind a cluster of the class's taller students. A broad smile on his face as he moved to seize the younger hero up in a rough embrace that took his friend a second to return. You're looking well, kiddo. You can walk! Kurai laughed as he was released and looked the elder Ida up and down. But the doctor said... I have your friend to thank, Tensei interrupted as he gestured to Eri, whose smile grew even wider as Kurai's eyes nearly popped out of his head. You rewound him, he gaped. Ingenium runs once again, Tenya declared before the girl could confirm the act, even as he took his turn to hug Kurai, breaking a strict code of societal politeness for the first time since the other classmates had come to know him. We were able to convince Principal Nezu to allow him on campus to welcome you back. He's not the only one, said another familiar voice that got Kurai to turn to his right, his smile growing back to the point where it was starting to hurt his face. Shuken moved forward to grasp forearms with his cousin before giving him yet another hug, one that was joined by Akuduri, who was also wearing a huge smile. Man, you really had us worried with that whole Kanto thing. It is so good to see you back in one piece. I gotta say, I kind of like the salt and pepper thing you had going on before. Now you're just salty. It's great to see you too. Now at least my looks match my personality. Kurai laughed. Looking over his cousin's shoulder, he then called out, Aunt Sakura, sorry I didn't call after the Humorize attack. I'd like to say I'm upset about that, but you just saved the world, so I don't think I have much grounds to stand on if I decided to be mad. The woman replied with a warm smile as she then moved to join the group hug. It's good to see you safe and sound, Kurai. They remained like that for a few seconds before Yang declared, Okay, all right. We agreed that the family gets first dibs on the hugging. That time is now past. Time to move it or lose it, Hogashas. With that, his family was practically shoved aside by the blonde so that Ruby and she could take their turn in welcoming the boy home. Of course, they were nowhere near as restrained in expressing their affection, and Kurai could have sworn he heard some of his joints popping out of place before they put him down. Come on, he grunted. Oh, just got out of the hospital again. You've taken worse and gotten up. Yang laughed, but she and her younger sister complied and released him, making sure to keep him steady on his feet as they did. Welcome back, Kai. Man, you were so cool in console with that video message, Ruby practically squealed. I can't believe I'm going to get to go to the same school and train in the same class as the next #1 hero. Okay, let's pump the brakes on that one, Kurdai told her. It's going to be a minute before any of us can even make our way onto the charts, let alone top 10. Yeah. 500 yen says you're in the top 10 faster than Hawks. Kirishima grinned as he extended a hardened fist toward his friend, who met it with a solid punch reinforced with traces of black lightning. You're on, Kurdai chuckled. Then he was all but tackled as he found himself on the receiving end of another crushing embrace, this one being delivered by their resident gravity heroine. Ow! It's good to see you too, Ochako. Don't ever worry us like that again, she scolded him through her smile and tears of relief. You scared all of us half to death. The halfway mark isn't so bad, he grinned back. Oh my, let the death thing go! Akudori demanded. Never! Kurdai was soon subjected to an arm wrestling tournament that Yayorozu made them hold outside, seeing as she did not want to have to remake another table if they happened to have a repeat of the last time Kurdai had pitted his raw strength against Kirishima. So much of their collective surprise, however, he did not do as well as they expected him to do when his quirks were taken out of the equation. He strained to beat Kirishima, and he outright lost to Izuku after his friend won against Ojiro. As he winced and rubbed his sore arm, the green-haired boy asked him what had happened. You've been training to fight since you were a kid. You're even better shape than I am. How? He wondered aloud, utterly bewildered by what had just happened. Yeah, not a lot of space to work out in a hospital for crazy people. Kurdai chuckled a little bitterly. I was able to do some reps each evening, but nothing like what we get here. I'm a little out of shape. Dude, you ripped apart a gas cloud like it was nothing, then blew up a mountain and a half. How are you out of shape? Jiro asked him, also looking perplexed by the sudden turn of events. Besides, you still look pretty fit to me. Those full-powered attacks I used bang me up, make no mistake, he replied as he looked down at his right arm, which was trembling slightly. Not as bad as Izuku used to be, but I don't have the physical constitution to handle this quirk at 100% without injury just yet. Nothing a return to routine workouts won't fix. Wait, how is it that you're able to use a quirk that Midoriya had to train for almost a year to handle even a fraction of the almost a full strength? Kirishima asked him. My body already had to adapt to one overpowered quirk before? Kurdai shrugged with a wry grin. Guess I should be counting my lucky stars on that account. So then, why doesn't Midoriya's body break whenever he uses your old quirk? Tensei asked curiously. He wasn't aware of One for All and its true properties, but he had been informed of the exchange of quirks between the two boys. Well, the strength enhancement works a little differently than a lot of people would assume, he started to explain. The energy not only acts as extra fuel for the muscles, giving him superhuman strength and agility, but also as a sort of cushion around the bones and muscle fibers so that impacts are reduced. As I grew up and trained the quirk, my body eventually adapted. I needed less and less energy to reinforce my body, until the amount pretty much became negligible. It's a semi-automatic function of the quirk, but it's also why fighting hand-to-hand for extended periods of time was a little more tiring than a casual glance would reveal. Turning toward Izuku, he then added, as time goes on, you should experience the same thing, although I imagine you need a lot less power to reinforce your body than I did when I first started training in earnest. I'll be counting on your help to minimize the time I have to spend with training wheels. His friend smiled, which he returned. From the tales of the way you handled yourself in Otheon, it doesn't sound like you'll need them for any length of time, young Midoriya, said another familiar voice, causing the people who had gathered outside to turn around and witness the comical sight of All Might walking toward the dorm building with a cart carrying a large cake on top of it. Young Hikari, it's good to see you home. He was followed closely by Aizawa, Togata, and Little Eri, whose eyes were shining like twin rubies with excitement. Good to be home, All Might. Kurdai grinned as he knelt on the grass and held his arms out wide, prompting Eri to let go of a laughing Togata and make a beeline straight into his waiting embrace. Hey, kiddo, he chuckled as he stood up and twirled the little girl around. Did the teachers tell you I got all better? Uh-huh, she giggled cheerfully as she returned the hug. I'm glad you're not sick anymore. Yeah, you and me both, he said as he loosened his hold so that he could swing her up and sit her on his shoulders, prompting her to laugh in delight again. I wasn't about to stay in a hospital for too long, you know. How else would I be able to play with my favorite kid? Yay, she chirped happily. Off to the side, several of the girls, minus Asui, Ochako, and Weiss, who had witnessed the interaction, were now looking at Mina with traces of jealousy, who just returned their gazes with a smug grin. Yeah, she giggled. That's all mine. Life is so unfair. Jiro grumbled as she kicked at the grass. You're just mad now that you didn't take Hagakure's dare to talk to him after karaoke on the first day of school, right? Asui said from where she was crouching in the grass. Off to the side, Blake was doing her very best to keep the heat from rising in her cheeks and having limited success. Out of everyone, she had made it a point to keep her interactions with Kurt-Eye to a minimum. Not sure that she trusted herself not to do something stupid if given the opportunity. Shut up! The slender girl stammered as her face flushed deep red while Mina doubled over laughing. Why'd you even bring that up? It's not like it matters now, does it? The frog girl replied with a tilted gaze toward her friend. If you're really over it, it shouldn't bother you so much. It's embarrassing getting reminded of stuff like that out of nowhere, Jiro grumbled while Mina continued to laugh, now having fallen over in the grass as she clutched at her sides. And now we've broken Ashido. Nice going, Sue. Ribbit. Hey, Kurt-Eye might be taken, but I'm not. The girls all turned to see Shuken grinning in a friendly manner from behind them, apparently having heard the last part of their conversation. He held up a hand and gave a quick wave while maintaining the smile and asking, How about it? Anyone want to go for the upgraded model? His smile and body language expressed nothing but sincerity, and when he had been introduced to each of the girls earlier, he had been very polite, much like his cousin. Even so, one of Jiro's earphone jacks stabbed him in the arm and pumped him with a quick sonic vibration that dropped him like a sack of potatoes, leaving him as a groaning mess on the grass. It's 100 years too early to be thinking you can hit on a group of girls, Skinny. The girl muttered as they walked away, some of them chuckling as they did. I'll take that as a maybe later, then, he groaned. Meanwhile, Kurt-Eye was approaching the teachers with a thought in mind. Good to see you, sir, he said as he shook hands with All Might. To the other instructor, he then said, Thanks for putting this together, Mr. Aizawa. What makes you think I did? Process of elimination, the boy answered with a cheekier grin. All Might was busy with the Alliance. Most of my classmates were out in the field, and those who weren't either aren't close enough to me to put something like this together, or they lack the imagination to do so. That leaves just you. I'll be having you undergo a quirk fitness test tomorrow morning to measure how your capabilities have diminished since your return to life. His teacher replied as he moved past him without so much as a sideways glance. Thought so. Kurt-Eye snickered. You're starting with a 10-lap run around Training Ground Beta. The Guardian hero sighed as he turned back toward All Might. Feels like nothing has changed. Even as he said the words, he felt as though he were speaking too soon. Something about the former pro-hero seemed off, but he couldn't put a finger on why. I think you'll find that a few things have changed just a little. The older man chuckled heartily. Yeah, true, like Bakugo and Shini. Didn't see that one coming. Young Bakugo and... What? All Might blinked at his student a couple of times before Kurt-Eye started chuckling again, leading the man to favor him with another smile and the words, Well, what do you say we bring this inside and start serving it to everyone? The weather outside was very pleasant, even though everyone was still at least wearing a sweater or a hoodie to keep warm. Up to you, Kurt-Eye grinned flippantly as he grinned at Eri, who was playing with his long hair, comparing it to her own. Outside or inside, I don't have a preference. But it's your cake, All Might told him as if it shouldn't have been obvious. Your decision is what counts right now. Come again for Kai? The boy said as his gaze dropped back to his teacher and then down to the frosting on the dessert, which he could now see spelled out, Welcome home, Kurt-Eye. Happy belated birthday. He blinked a couple of times in surprise before he looked back up and asked, What, really? I thought this was to congratulate our class on not getting killed by humor eyes. My birthday was over a month ago. This should be for Hakururi, if anybody. Dork. Mina grinned as she skipped up to stand beside him. You really thought our class was going to let this chance slip by? Happy birthday, Kai. Eri chirped from atop his head. You've done too much for us not to throw a proper welcome back party, Kirishima said as he and a few of the other guys approached them. The birthday thing's just a bonus. A few of us had gifts for you sitting around since you were bumming it in the hospital, and we need an excuse to get rid of them. Kaminari snickered. This is the best chance we had to do that without making it awkward. Which you just did by saying that, Sero told his friend, who shrugged unapologetically. I guess we'll go and eat inside then, Kurt-Eye said with another shrug, jostling his passenger as he said. What do you say, Eri? Want some cake? Yes, please. You heard the little lady, Kurt-Eye called out as he started heading back toward the dorm. I haven't eaten anything in a few hours except for some subpar office ramen at the station. I need real food. Since when is cake real food? Shuken asked as he joined his cousin, having just finished brushing the last blade of grass out of his hair. Last I checked, since the three of us split that pound cake when our moms and my dad went to that last police gala. Kurt-Eye tossed back without missing a beat. Dude, I knew you boys threw out the lasagna I made that night, Sakura called as she started walking toward them while the other students rippled with laughter. Aunt Sakura, I love you, but what kind of real lasagna has no ground beef in it? A vegan one. That's not a real lasagna! After the people in attendance had their share of cake, Kurt-Eye was treated with various gifts from his friends. Some were in celebration of his return, while others had meant for them to be for his birthday. There was Dragon Ball, Naruto, Star Wars merchandise from multiple givers, and from his family, he received a comprehensive book and hollow disc detailing the first 10 years of Gang Orca's hero career. Mina's gift was a big surprise to him, as it turned out to be a series of instructional DVDs that detailed all 7 forms of lightsaber combat, all the way from the basic forms of Shicho to the most advanced maneuvers of Vapad. I figured you wouldn't mind a chance to go beyond your normal nerd level so you could go plus ultra with your fighting style, she told him before he caught her up in a spinning embrace that got her laughing, and most of their friends smiling at them. Yes and yes, he cheered as he set her down. To everyone else, he added, thank you for all of this, guys. It means more than I can tell you. Just then, the doors were opened from the outside to admit yet another group of people that took Kurai by surprise. Hope we're not too late, Tetsu called out as his class filed in behind him. Heard you guys were having a party to welcome back. Oh, hey, Kari. You're looking good, man. Thanks, he replied as the room became significantly more crowded with the majority of Class B's population, as well as Amajiki and Hado trailing in behind all of them. We wanted to be the ones to surprise you, but we figured it'd be fair to invite the other guys welcoming you back to the hero course, Kirishima explained. Don't worry, they said they were going to do something to keep Monoma busy while they were doing this. In lieu of that, however, we did bring this, said Awase, who held up what looked like a dummy of their loudmouth classmate. It's a piñata, something they do over in the West, apparently. As he said this, he looked over at a quartet of students whom Kurai did not recognize. Yep, said a blonde boy as he held up a wooden bat. You hit it until it breaks open and spills all the candy in it. My sisters always loved doing this at their parties. You don't seem entirely opposed to it yourself, his dark-haired comrade commented dryly, which set the four of them to debating among themselves while the other freshman students moved to greet their friends. Who are these guys? Kurai asked in an aside to his fiancée. They're Team Juniper, she reminded him in a lowered tone. That guy's Ark, the other one is Ren, the short girl's Valkyrie, and the supermodel is Nikos. Right, got it. He nodded. Then he found himself returning well wishes to the other aspiring heroes in his year as they took their turns in welcoming him back. Eventually, he was formally introduced to the newcomers from the States, and much like his friends before him, he was surprised at how different each of them were from one another. So, how about it? Jean said as he held up the piñata once the introductions were over. I heard about how Monoma gave you quite a bit of grief last year. Want to smack it? Kurai eyed the prop a little critically before he said, no offense, but it isn't going to take a lot to break that thing open. Isn't this more of a little kid's thing? I mean, I'm sure Ari would love to take you up on it. John forgot to tell you that you're blindfolded while you try to hit it. You got to spin around a bunch of times before you try to take a swing. Nora informed him with an unsettling smile, which got his eyebrow to raise a fraction. Also, no quirks. Okay, I'm interested. You should change your alias to the window-smashing hero. Mina laughed as Kurai lay on the grass, staring up at the sky, which he desperately wished would stop spinning above him. I assumed I would be spinning myself. He groaned out as he shut his eyes, which somehow only made the sensation worse, forcing him to open back up and see Mina staring down at him with a bright grin. You guys are evil! In the background, a lot of his classmates were laughing while All Might and Aizawa were trying to figure out how they were going to justify another broken window to Nezu. Once the blindfold had gone over his eyes, Ochako had surprised him by negating his gravity, followed by Blake's ribbon binding him up tightly, and then Yang finishing things off by yanking on the fabric with all of her strength, which had essentially turned him into a floating top for a good 15 seconds. When Ochako had disengaged her quirk, he had barely been able to stand up, let alone remember where the piñata had been placed. Nevertheless, he waited until he felt like he could keep his feet steady underneath him, and then swung the bat with all his might in what felt like the right direction. Unfortunately for him, he misjudged just how bad the vertigo had affected him, and it was less than a second between him realizing that he had lost his grip on the bat and registering the sound of something on the second story being shattered. Now he was struggling not to throw up the cake he had eaten previously, and apparently his state was sorry enough that the future Aerie decided to take pity on him. Here, let me help you, she said as she placed a hand on his brow before a spark jumped between them, and he felt his nausea immediately drain away. Better? She asked. Yep. He grunted before he performed a kip onto his feet and gave his classmates an annoyed look. Villains! He shouted with mock anger. All of you villains! I guess he could dish punishments but not take. Yang cackled. Oh yeah? Kurai smirked as he raised his right hand. Let's see how you deal with it. Black Whip shot out of his arm and ensnared Yang before she could react, followed by him lifting her off the ground and then spinning his arm rapidly, which in turn whirled her around and around for several seconds, until he decided to let go and dropped her on the grass from a safe height. Predictably, she did not land on her feet, instead falling onto the grass and clutching at her head with a low groan. Not so funny now, is it, Xiaolong? He smirked as he approached. So, are we still going to hit the piñata or what? Jean asked Ren, who was holding the rope with a passive look on his face as he shrugged in response. The blonde then let out a yelp as Black Whip snaked around the puppet and squeezed roughly, breaking the cardboard and depositing all the resulting candy onto the ground. Mind picking that up for Aerie? Kurai asked over his shoulder while he held Ruby at arm's length, who was trying to take revenge on her sister's behalf. She'll like it more than I will. Thank you, though. This was therapeutic. Another squeeze, and the Monoma Pinata lost its head, which went rolling past the two boys, who now regarded one another with wider eyes. Man, Mona must have really pissed him off. The blonde student chuckled nervously as Black Whip dissipated. I wonder what he would make of Cardin's team if they were ever to cross paths. Ren commented quietly as he let the rope fall while they moved to pick up the candy pieces. Now that's a fight I'd pay to see, Jean admitted with a wry chuckle. The party continued on for some time after, but eventually Kurt Eye's forgotten exhaustion got the better of him. He sat down on the couch to play Smash Bros. With some of the other boys, and as soon as his head touched the cushion behind him, he was fast asleep. Huh, Sero said as he scratched his head and looked down at the other boy. Guess he has been up for a while. Yeah, Bakugo went up to his room a little while ago. Kirishima nodded as a few of them gathered around their friend. I'm honestly surprised with everyone in their team has stayed up this long. Well, he, Izuku, and Eri probably had the worst of it, Mina said as she rubbed her own eyes. They had to fight the leader and all. Seeing him like that, though, I feel like I'm going to crash myself. We'll get you guys to your rooms then. Ochako volunteered as she used her quirk to make Kurt Eye float again so they could move him with less chances of waking him up. She also grabbed Izuku's hand, who followed her without much resistance toward the elevator. Come on, Mina. Thanks, the pink girl mumbled as she made to follow them. As they left, Todoroki turned toward future Eri before asking, couldn't you rewind them so they have their normal energy levels? I could, she answered with a grin, having done that very thing to herself earlier in the day. But I think they've earned some time alone. Todoroki said nothing, but he did nod in agreement after a moment of silence between them. Thanks for getting us here, girl, Mina said as Ochako released her quirk on Kurt Eye, depositing him gently onto his bed. I got it now. Get some sleep, she told her friend with a soft laugh before she exited the room and closed the door behind her. She found Izuku about to nod off where he was standing, so she jostled his shoulder a little to rouse him before he could completely pass out. Come on, Deku, she said as she gripped his hand and led him along toward his own room. You need to get your own rest. Sorry to be a bother, he mumbled. You've never been a bother, she assured him as they reached his room. Needing help every once in a while, even for little things like this, doesn't make you a bother. Right, he nodded slowly. Still getting used to that idea. Yeah, well. Ochako's face burned as she considered her next words, but by the time they were stepping into his room, she decided to say, when you love somebody, it's no trouble to lend them a helping hand, you know? Being apart from him and the others for the battle against Humorize had not been all that upsetting to her during the race against the clock. But after she'd been given time to reflect on how things had gone, she realized things could have turned out much differently. What if they hadn't been able to stop the bombs? What if she died a world away from her best friends, without saying what she needed to say to them, to her best friend in particular? Thus, she had made up her mind to set something straight as soon as she had a chance, and here it was. Izuku stopped where he was, causing her to turn around and look at him with a fidgety air as he blinked several times in succession. When you... He repeated slowly as if he didn't trust what his own ears had just told him. Ochako took another deep breath before she took the plunge again and said, Izuku, I love you. You love? He whispered, his exhaustion temporarily forgotten. I do. She nodded as she stepped forward and looked him straight in the eye. I really do. You've been my hero for a long time and the best friend that I've ever had. I admire you so much, Izuku, and I have to keep pinching myself every day to make sure that I'm not about to wake up and realize that I dreamed all this up. I do love you. Izuku's eyes welled with tears before he threw his arms around Ochako and started to cry. I can't remember the last time I heard that from anyone other than my mom, he sobbed. I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am right now, because I love you too, Ochako. Hearing these words removed the girl's reservations as she threw her arms around him, not caring that she was causing them both to float in the process. You've always believed in me even when I haven't, he cried softly. You were the first person I could save with my quirk, and that made me so happy. I would have saved anyone, but you're so special and precious to me. I'm glad it was you. He pulled back slightly and laughed hoarsely before he went on to say, You gave me my hero name, something I've wanted all my life, and then you became my friend, which I never would have dreamed would be possible for someone like me. You make me feel like I can do anything except for be good enough to deserve someone like you. I love you so much, Ochako. He buried his face back on her shoulders. They both began to laugh quietly while they held on to each other, even as they bumped into the ceiling. They knew now that no matter how far apart their work might take them from one another, They would always be with each other to share their strength. The members of the Otheon attack napped until the sun started to descend, which was when Kodai's extended family had to leave, so Akadori made a point to wake up his brother so that he could say goodbye to them before they departed. Sorry I crashed so hard, he mumbled as he hugged his cousin farewell. It was really good to see you, though. Don't worry about it, Shuken chuckled. It was cool getting to meet all your friends. Now I know whose merch I need to buy when they're fresh out of school while they're cheap. I hope you're not thinking about using me as a connection to get a bunch of autographed memorabilia from my classmates to put it for bids on the internet when we go pro. Kodai deadpanned. No idea what you're talking about, his cousin replied cheerfully. On an unrelated note, mind signing my cap here? So saying, he held up a blue baseball hat and a marker, which Kodai took with a roll of his eyes and proceeded to sign. Thanks. Now I can finally get those losers who don't believe that I'm cousins with the hero of Kanto to finally shut up. Kodai's right eyebrow shot up, but he said nothing until he had finished signing the hat and then handed it back to Shuken. Careful who you show that to, he advised the older boy. Why, what? The elder Hogosha boy looked down at the cap, then back to his cousin with a stricken look. Dude, why'd you have to do me like that? On the bill of the hat, Kodai had written, for my dumbest fan, Kai. Not inaccurate. Yeah, you sound like your brother! You make that sound like a bad thing. No one asked you, Aki! Not long after that, Shuken, Sakura, Tensei, Little Eri, and the teachers all left, leaving only the Hero Course students, plus the big three, to continue the party. Shiozaki and Pura from Class B teamed up to make dinner, with input from Bakugo that was unasked for, but not unwelcome. The result was a spread of shabu-shabu that the students all took turns in filling their bowl with. Now refreshed and having had a chance to say hello and give thanks to everyone who had come to celebrate his return, Kodai was able to justify spending more time with his closer friends. In this case, his brother, the other members of Team Lightning Drop, Kirishima, Todoroki, Tenya, Future Eri, Yayurozu, and Togata. Even Amajiki had been pulled into hanging out with their group, though he spent most of the time sitting at the corner of the table trying to make himself look as small as possible to avoid attracting attention. So you two were basically on vacation while the rest of us were being put to work in the field? Kirishima demanded, having just heard what the two of them had spent a couple of days laying low in a backwater town that they refused to mention by name. Essentially, Mina confirmed with a bright grin. In my defense, I was ready to come back after the first night had passed, but Nezu told us to lay low. Kodai shrugged. I just followed orders. I'm sure you didn't enjoy following those orders at all, right? Eri snickered. No comment. Well, all things considered, as long as you two conducted yourselves in a manner that is above reproach, I see no flaw in the principal's plan, Ida commented. After all, you were able to exploit the element of surprise quite well, as we all saw. No comment, Kodai repeated with a grin. Wait, no comment on the part about exploiting the element of the surprise or being on above reproach. Ida now asked them suspiciously. Mina and Kodai exchanged a look, returned their gazes to their class representative, and then said, no comment. Then they burst into laughter as most of their friends turned red, save for Akadori, who was rolling his eyes at the two of them. If I ever have kids, you two are going to be the ones I point at and say, do everything you can to avoid becoming like those idiots, he muttered. And since that is never going to happen because there's literally no woman alive who would be willing to put up with your level of attitude, we'll just point you out to our kids and say, there's the image of narcissism perfected. Mina shot back, which got Kodai to hang his head with a small groan. What? Don't ever tell him he's perfect in any way. It always goes to his head. I don't know what you're talking about, Akadori said with a smug grin of his own. My perfection is an assumed fact of nature. There is no need to go pointing it out whenever there's an opportunity. Anyway, Ochako said in an effort to steer the conversation back to the original topic. What'd you guys do while you were laying low? Or did you avoid going out to avoid attracting attention? The place we hid out in is pretty backwater, Kodai answered. A lot of people that live there are a little on the older side. They don't keep up much with the times. Even if someone of the residents recognized Mina, it probably would have just been as a UA Sports Festival competitor, if even that. We were able to visit some shops and restaurants. A slight smile etched itself into his face as he added, we got some fireworks that we were able to set off on the beach, which made itself into a nice little show. Correction, I got the fireworks, Akadori snickered. You guys just took advantage of my hard work, like usual. Judging from the smile on your face, something good must have happened with the fireworks, Togata interjected, having noticed the sly grins that Mina and Kodai were giving each other following Akadori's jab. Oh yeah, Mina grinned as she reached behind her neck to undo the clasp of her new necklace. You could definitely say that. She pulled the chain out, making sure to use her free hand to hide what was on the end of it until she could put the ring onto the appropriate finger underneath the table. Fact, it's the best thing to happen to me in my life so far. Wait, Boom! Mina said as she held out her hand over the table, proudly displaying the diamond in the ring she had been given and causing most of their friends' eyes to nearly pop out of their heads. Eri, Izuku, Todoroki, and Akudori already knew about the development, even if the latter had not seen the ring on her finger until now. That looks good on you, he said sincerely as he looked her in the eyes. I look forward to having a sister. Aw, thanks. She giggled while the others tried to process what they were seeing. I'm looking forward to not being the youngest child in my family. Is that thing real? Ochako sputtered. Yep. Kudai nodded with a laugh. It's a beautiful piece, Yaoyorozu said as she eyed the jewel in a similar enough manner to Weiss that nearly made the couple laugh, though she did not seem to notice. Congratulations to the both of you. Where'd you find something like that? Kirishima asked as he leaned over the table to get a better look. Did you get it wherever you guys were hiding out? Nope, Mina replied cheerily. His mom gave it to him to give to me. I thought that ring looked familiar, Ida said as he turned to his friend, who mentally prepared himself for a lecture. Instead, he was fairly surprised when the taller boy grabbed his hand and started pumping it eagerly while saying, Congratulations indeed, Kudai. I wish you many happy years together from here on. Then, because he was Ida, he felt the need to add, although this impacts your schoolwork in any way, I will be forced to... Yeah, I know. Kudai chuckled as he returned the handshake. Behind him, Ochako had run around the table to hug her friend with happy tears beginning to show at the corners of her eyes. Izuku's influence, he thought. A ring for the girl you love is so freaking manly! Kirishima declared before he extended his fist toward Kudai, who returned the gesture once again. Congrats, man. You too, Ashido. Thanks, dude. Kudai replied as they disengaged. What's this about a ring? Yang asked as she popped up over Togota's shoulder. Before anyone could even begin to wonder where she had come from, her eyes widened and she shouted over her shoulder, Sis, Pyrrha, ladies of UA, you gotta come check this out! Why? Ruby called out before appearing beside her sister in a flurry of red petals, who was now examining Mina's ring more closely. What's all the holy crap, that's a big rock! And that's my cue to get out of the way. Kudai chuckled before he used float to levitate up and out of the way of the small swarm of girls who had come to check out the ring that Mina was only too happy to show off. He maneuvered himself so that he landed in a corner of the room, which was already occupied by Amajiki, who he hadn't even seen move. When'd you get here? He asked. The second your girlfriend pulled out the ring, the older student answered, his face planted firmly against the wall. I knew people would come running, especially Nejire. As if on cue, the pair could see and hear the blue whirlwind scrambling to get a look at the item in question herself. Yeah, good call. Kudai chuckled as he leaned back against the wall, content to wait until the others would inevitably move on to him again. Here's hoping she doesn't start asking for one herself, Amajiki mumbled as he peered back over his shoulder. I don't think I could handle her any more than I do right now. It took a few seconds for Kudai to understand what his senior had just said, but when he did, it was his turn to get wide eyes. Look at the... You two? He sputtered. I mean... How did that happen? I don't entirely know, the other boy admitted. Not long after freshman year started, Nejire was the only person in my class that I could bring myself to talk to. After that, Togata started inviting her along with us to the movies and arcade. From there, we became the big three. Then, after Nejire beat me in the tournament at the sports festival this year, she told me that she was going to treat me to lunch, and Mirio said I should take her up on it. Apparently, without me realizing it, I got roped into a date with her, and it's kept happening ever since. It's very exhausting. Kudai eyed him with concern before he asked, Are you okay, man? Does she know you feel this way? Yeah. He nodded before turning to look at his classmate, though he kept his head planted on the glass. I'm okay, and it's okay. If Mirio hadn't made friends with me, I'd never be able to look anyone in the eye at all. And if Nejire hadn't come into my life to pull me further out of my shell, I'd probably never be able to talk to anyone other than Mirio. She's good for me. He paused before he looked down again and whimpered, but still so exhausting. Good luck then? Kudai offered awkwardly. Still, can't say I blame him, he added silently to himself. The girl's exhausting to be around for 5 minutes, let alone a class or a date. Amajiki's more resilient than I give him credit for. Hey, where's Hikari? Sero demanded from across the gathering of girls, where the boys had started to congregate, their own curiosities having been piqued. Got him! Kudai let out a yelp as Dark Shadow pulled him up by his shirt and lifted him up and over the table and cluster of female students before setting him down in a rough circle made up of the other boys. Here you go, guys. Thank you, Dark Shadow. Tokoyami, you traitor! We merely wish to express our congratulations to you for taking this rather momentous step in your life. The raven-headed boy replied, his expression unchanged by Kudai's accusation. Is that not what friends do? Speak for yourself, Kaminari said as he, Sero, and a couple of the boys from Class B advanced into a smaller circle around him. Dude, not only do you get a girl like Ashido, but now you're setting the standards way too high for the rest of us. Kudai regarded them all carefully, danger sense beginning to buzz in the back of his head from their proximity. I don't take your meaning, he told them. Which of the girls are going to want to go out with us when we can't offer them anything half as nice as what you give an Ashido? Awase demanded of him. You've ruined the Bachelors of the Freshman Hero course, you selfish bastard! Kunai regarded them all for a few more seconds before he replied, have any of you guys thought about trying to ask a girl out before you look for reasons why it won't work? Like you can talk, Ashido asked you out, Sarah wailed. What are you hassling me for? Kunai asked him incredulously. She started it, go ask her what you're doing wrong. Dude, are you crazy? Kuroro asked while he checked surreptitiously over his shoulder to make sure none of the girls were paying attention to their conversation. Unsurprisingly, they were all a bundle of excited energy that was focused on one thing, and one thing only, the beautiful, glittering gem that sat on Mina's hand. We're not interrupting them in the middle of that. They'd probably kill us. Then go ask Bakugo, Kuroi said, exasperated. Him and Schnee started going out, apparently. What? Kaminari yelped, looking scandalized. Since when? Damn it, Hogosha, that was supposed to be a secret! The explosive teen shouted from where he was trying to finish his dinner. Now these idiots are never going to leave either of us alone. Sorry, Kuroi cringed. Honest mistake. Actually, I don't like my chances of getting any answers out of him, Awase muttered, leading the others to agree in a series of nods and echoes of affirmation. Well, then you're up a creek, Kuroi shrugged. Mina approached me, Ochako made the first move with Izuku, and Bakugo's more likely to blow you up than hand out dating advice. Sorry, guys. Boo! You suck! Toko... Lucky bastard. Oh, the depths of despair be upon me. Kuroi gave them all another flat look before he performed a standing backflip that landed them outside of their wailing inner circle before turning around and muttering, Drama queens. Their ill-favored mannerisms aside, many of us are happy for you, Hikari. Tokoyami said as he approached and shook hands with his friend. You are more deserving of the joys that a life with shared with Ashido is sure to offer. Congrats, man, Ojiro told him in his turn. Which of us could have guessed that we'd be here now all those months ago when we went to karaoke for a bit of class bonding? I'd be happy to make the cake for you guys, when the time comes, Sato offered a little abashedly. Kuroi favored him with a broad smile before saying, We'd have to be stupid not to take you up on that. I look forward to seeing it happen. All right, the muscular teen cheered, leading many of his friends, including those who had been previously complaining, to laugh with him. In all seriousness, we are happy for you too, Kaminari told them, followed by a general chorus of agreement from the others. You've had to fight against a pretty stacked deck, so it makes sense you'd get a good hand every now and again. Congrats, dude. Thanks. Kuroi accepted, shaking hands with the other boy. You're a pretty good guy when you want to be. Keep being that person. You'll have the ladies coming after you before you know it. Okay. Wait, what do you mean, that person? While this was happening, Yang found herself standing in the kitchen next to Blake, who was very intent on making a rather simple cup of lavender tea. She made her way over after noticing she was the only girl who wasn't currently trying to get a good look at the ring that Kuroi had given to Mina. You okay? She asked the dark-haired girl when she was sure that no one was looking their way. Only to her partial surprise, Blake turned toward her without a hint of extra color in her cheeks or sign of tears in her eyes to say, Nope. Yang regarded her friend with sympathy before she asked, Want to talk about it? Nope. Okay. Yang nodded before she gave the other girl a brief hug. She knew her teammate's body language well enough to tell that directly pressing the subject right then would accomplish nothing positive. All she could do was let her know that she didn't have to keep this up all to herself. Let me know when you change your mind. I will. All right. With that, the blonde girl started to leave, but then another thought occurred to her, leading her to turn back toward her friend and say, Just a thought, before I go. Blake looked her in the eye but said nothing, which Yang took as permission to continue. Hikari values your friendship a lot. You guys have been through some stuff together, and it's a real attachment that he's made with you. I know that's what's making things hard on you with all this, but if you value him as a friend at all, you should congratulate him. Putting on a wry smile, she added, If you don't at least say something, he's going to start wondering where you are, then he'll be worried, which is just going to lead to another set of problems for you. And me, by extension. Sorry, Blake apologized as she closed her eyes and lowered her head. I don't mean to make extra trouble for you. Don't worry about it, Yang told her. Pretty sure I'll be the one to cause more trouble between us in the long run. In spite of herself, Blake cracked a little smile before saying, If that's true, we better win against Shigaraki when he comes back, because that'll just be a warm-up compared to what you'd bring to the table. Ha! Yang chuckled before her expression became more sober. All right, I'll leave you alone now. Just do yourself a favor, talk to him before you sit on this for too long. It'll be better for both of you, even if he doesn't know it. Doesn't make it easy. It'll be a lot harder if you wait. I know. Blake sighed, her voice finally betraying her in the sound of a slight tremble. You're a good friend, Yang. I know. Okay, not so good. As Yang walked away with a snarky grin on her lips, Blake let out a long sigh and forced herself to admit that she had a very difficult portion of the evening ahead of her. Suppose we have some preparations to make, All Might sighed as he sat down on his computer at the teacher's office. Young Hikari's going to need all the help he can get in catching up with his peers after his time in the hospital. His academics have already been taken care of, Aizawa replied without looking up from his own computer. While not as intensive as our own program, the hospital did have classes for people his age who were cleared to continue pursuing schoolwork, which he took advantage of. Nezu has already drafted a brief test on each subject that covered in our curriculum that will ascertain whether or not he has fallen behind his classmates, and if so, to what degree. After that, I'll schedule some makeup sessions as they're needed. He mentioned that his physical constitution is weakened from his time spent in Itamori. The blonde teacher commented thoughtfully. I'll work with Recovery Girl to see if we can't build him up the muscle mass that he used to have. Should make it easier for him to handle One for All's full strength. Good, Aizawa muttered. I trust her not to let you go overboard again. All Might regarded the other man with a tired sigh before he said, I'm trying to do better, Aizawa. I don't want to see him come to harm because of my mistakes again any more than you do. Aizawa still didn't look up from his computer, but he did nod just once in his colleague's general direction. As long as you're not trying, he told him, just do it. Then I will do better by all the students, not just the inheritors of One for All. Well, Kurai asked as he scratched the back of his head while his fiancée looked him up and down. What's the verdict? She mused with a little smile as she took in the sight of him with newly cut hair that no longer hung over his eyes when unkempt or brushed the nape of his neck. He had asked Asui to take her scissors to his head once everyone had settled down about the engagement ring, which the frog girl had happily obliged to. Mina had to admit, he looked pretty good with his hair back to a more manageable length. Not that she could allow him to know such a thing right away. To that end, she turned to Asui and said, I think we need to take more of it off. Rivet? The other girl croaked as she put a finger up to her cheek, while Kurai looked very confused.
Why is that? Any shorter, he'll look like one of those military guys in those Western movies that Kirishima likes watching.
Well, we gotta mess him up somehow, she replied, her mouth starting to quirk upwards in spite of her best efforts. I mean, if we leave him like this, he's just too handsome. Kurai stared at her for a couple of seconds before he slapped his hand over his eyes and let out a long groan while she gave into her laughter. Seriously, it's gonna be hard enough to keep all the girls away from you as it is, she giggled. This suit has to make you go and look like an Adonis. Then she doubled over, her stomach already sore from all the laughter that she'd been putting it through in the last few hours. You're hilarious, Kurai grumbled as he dropped his hand away. As an afterthought, he looked down at it and added, Man, I am so glad I don't risk breaking my nose every time I do that. I'm kind of surprised that never happened, if we're being honest, Kirishima commented. Nice haircut. Thanks, man.
I'll just go put these away, Rivet.
Asui said as she padded away with her trimming equipment in hand. Thanks, Sue, Kurai called out as she left. To Mina, he said, You're evil. Correction, I am delightfully deceptive, she replied with a cheeky grin. Like I said... Blake? Kurai's sentence was cut off as he called their approaching classmate by name. He was wearing a new grin as he said, Been hard to catch you for a minute today. Could have sworn you were avoiding me. Sorry, she apologized, keenly aware of Mina's subtly scrutinizing gaze being cast upon her. Ignoring it for the time being, she focused on Kurai and said, It's not easy being around you right now, if I'm honest. Kurai's smile faded in favor of a slight frown as he said, I'm sorry, did I do something to you? No, it's nothing you did, she hurried to assure him. His frown remained in place as he then said, If this is about Nabu Island, I swear to my ancestors, Kurai, what happened on Nabu Island is always going to haunt me. And I won't pretend otherwise. Blake said with a level of strength that surprised Kurai. You may have made your peace about it, but I haven't, and I honestly doubt that I ever will. That said, you mean more to me than my trauma. Without any further hesitation, the girl stepped forward and wrapped her arms around the boy, who was initially taken aback by the affectionate gesture from his normally taciturn friend. Thank you for standing by me when you could, she told him softly, and congratulations to you and Ashido on your engagement. I'm sure you'll be very happy together. With a more relieved smile on his face now, Kurai returned the hug while saying, Thank you. Let me know if there's ever anything I can do to help out in regards to the trauma bit. I will, she said as she pulled back and favored him with a rare smile. Off to the side, Eri had put a hand on Mina's shoulder as a precautionary measure against any hasty actions on her friend's behalf. You don't need to worry about her, she said in a low tone that only the pink girl could hear. I'm sure you already worked out for yourself she isn't that kind of person. Doesn't stop the basic instinct of wanting to scalp her, Mina muttered. Eri regarded her with a slightly worried look, which led to her deflating a little and admitting, Okay, not scalp her, but some manner of bodily harm would probably be involved if I didn't know better.
Ari looked downward at that, a strange expression on her face that seemed to indicate she was struggling with whether or not to say something. Eventually, she lifted her head and looked Mina in the eye again as she asked, "Did I tell you about how Gamble Shroud died in the future?" "No, just that she was long dead by the time you came back to this time." The pink girl answered with a slight frown. "What does that have to—" "It was when Shigaraki's forces came for Kai's corpse." Ari interrupted her. "At the time, we assumed that he and the doctor were raiding graveyards, using cadavers to produce a new generation of Nomu, which they were, though we now know he was after One for All. Alkadori got wind of their plans to raid the graveyard where he and a lot of other heroes were buried, and our alliance put some of our best and brightest together to put a stop to it. Ground Zero and Freezer Burn and others with incendiary-type quirks got to work on destroying the bodies so that Shigaraki couldn't use them as soon as they arrived. But the front was already there, looking for Kai's grave. Clones of Twice started digging up other bodies of interest, while Dobby, Spinner, Moonfish, and Cinder had come to keep everyone from interfering. The only advantage that our side had was that we knew where the body was, but even that wasn't enough to let the team win. On the other hand, you all made the villains pay for their victory dearly." "How's that?" "I'm told that you and Gamble Shroud worked together to kill Moonfish, a fight that put you in critical condition," Ari answered. "By the time you made it back to home base, I was almost too late in being able to save your life. She, on the other hand..." The time traveler indicated Blake with a small motion of her hand here. "She held off the other villains on her own while Ground Zero ordered a retreat. Took Cinder's other hand and killed Twice's prime in the process, too. Real Steel and Weld found her body in the aftermath of the battle, next to Kai's tombstone." She let that fact sink in before she added, "According to the quirk of one of our allies who could see certain events of the recent past, she fought to her last breath to keep them from digging up his body. More than her own life, she didn't want to see him made into a monster for Shigaraki to use and hurt us with." Done saying her piece, Ari watched as the tension slowly drained from Mina's body, though the weary look in her eyes remained. "I always trust Kurai," she murmured, "so I'm not worried in that sense. I'm not even really worried about her making a move on him. I just wish that I could hate her for wanting him. But the more I watch her and learn about her, the more I also want to like her. And now that I know how hard she fought for him, even when I couldn't... Damn it, I actually have to respect her for it." Giving Ari an accusatory look, she then said, "Why'd you have to tell me about that? Why couldn't you tell me something that justifies me hating her?" "Because she doesn't deserve your hate," Ari replied with a shrug. "And I don't want to see you carrying even a shade of bitterness inside of you that you had in my future. Yours and Kai's happiness is a beautiful thing, Mina. Enjoy it because you can now, without worrying about anyone else." At that, Mina's face broke into a slightly sheepish grin. "You're a pretty wise kid," she told her. "We're lucky to have you reminding us of how good we actually have it." "My pleasure," the other girl giggled. "Besides, you gotta remember, Kai's my hero. If I have a chance to save him some grief, you better believe that I'll take it." "I'll hear that." With another pair of smiles, the two girls moved back toward Kurai, who was now talking to Blake and Tokoyami. Tomorrow would throw them back into the unremitting hero coursework of UA's freshman year, but none of them felt very apprehensive at the thought. It was going to be mind-bending, back-breaking work that would make most anyone else in their shoes throw their hands in the air and wail in despair as they gave into their own weaknesses, but not these students. After all, they would finally be capable of moving forward in a way that they had not been able to do in quite some time. Starting tomorrow, Class 1A would all be moving together toward a brighter future.
Never took the backseat or wonder what's a dream without a goal to conquer. Just a painful reminder. I've seen 4 miles how the river only bends and the two sides meet again. Put your hate to bed, or you'll never see the end. Be the one they choose to follow. Would you run towards your failures every day, just to prove that nothing's standing in your way? In the moments I could feel it, when my sacrifice was needed, before they could even see me, I was there, like a flash of lightning.
So this is kind of a fun, coming down chapter.
Yeah, it was definitely mostly feel good.
Yeah.
A
I don't
couple
think there
heavy
was-
moments.
I mean, what moments would you call heavy in this?
Toward
one?
the end.
Like toward the. I mean.
Yeah, we can talk
Yeah.
about that later.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think, we come in, we're super overtired.
I love that. I love that bit
jet-lagged.
where like Weiss is just so done with everybody's drama that she's just like, all right, you guys can stay out of here. I'm going in.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
I'm like, it was a toss up between whether her or Bakugo would do it, but I felt like a bit of dry humor was a little more appropriate at that point in time.
Oh,
Because Bakugo would
wouldn't
have just
even-
yelled. Bakugo would have just yelled at everybody, and I felt like kind of a quiet indignation was a better fit at that for that moment.
I feel like Bakugo at this point, he's just gonna walk and ignore all of their dumb assery because
Something like that.
I can just see them having this special moment, and he's just got his hands in his pants. He just walks right by them.
Yeah.
Doesn't even care.
No.
Yeah,
Not at all.
that's not worth the energy.
Nope. Then we had the surprise party going.
Mm-hmm.
I know you loved it when Shuken showed up.
Oh yes, he's one of my favorites for
Yeah.
sure.
He's like, man, I may end up having to make like a side story with Akuduru and Shuken because like just every time they show up,
Yeah.
everybody loves them.
Well, like I was all sad for him too because the girl totally burned him. I think one thing that was over the top for me in this chapter was just like the constant praise of Kudai. I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, I get it. He's good looking, cool. But it was just like, it kept going and going and going. And I'm like,
Did it?
really? Yes, it was nonstop.
I didn't.
It was so obnoxious. I'm sorry.
I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It
Oh,
was
fever brain. So. It's done.
yeah. But no, yeah, the party's fun.
I thought the only bit they were talking about that was after Sue gave him a haircut, and that was it.
It was before that because all the girls are like, man.
No, they were. That's because of his interaction with Eri. It wasn't because
Yeah, exactly.
It was because he looked good.
Exactly. Okay, you were going on and on and on about how he's a catch. Okay.
It was just the 2 times.
It was most of the chapter.
I do not recall
It was
that.
most of the chapter. It just kept coming up constantly.
Okay.
And it's like the whole chapter was just like Mina going, yeah, he's mine, and everyone being like, damn it.
There was like that's just one instant there.
No.
the
Multiple. Multiple.
No.
Whatever.
You're whatever. Oh my goodness.
What?
What was I gonna say? I enjoyed getting to write like. So the chapter's called Reunions. I really enjoyed getting to write, brief though they were, his reunions with his cousin and with Tensei. Because he hasn't been told Tensei can walk, so he's like,
Oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that. That was exciting.
So he's really happy about that.
I liked his reunion with Aizawa because Aizawa was just my favorite.
I love how they just kind of call each other out, like in a super passive aggressive way. Like that's just what their relationship is at this point.
Absolutely.
He's like, thanks for putting the party together. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. All right, you're running laps tomorrow. All right, it's like I never left.
Yep, exactly. I love it. And then, of course, All Might feels.
Yes, I love like I don't know why I had the image in my head of All Might just walking around with like a tray, like a big cake on it. I don't know why that image popped into my head, but it did, and I was like, this is too funny for me not to use
I
it.
feel like you need to draw this now.
I might have
With
to.
a little pink apron.
He's got his black tux on. He's got a little pink apron on in the front.
Yes, please. That sounds amazing. I am
man.
here with cake.
Yep. I actually originally was going to introduce him that way, but I had him not do it because for him is like, this is not his moment. It's not
Yeah.
his time. It's not his time
Yeah.
anymore. It's like they're here to celebrate this guy. Everybody's happy. Like he's back. He's sane. Like it's a big deal.
Aw, look at you writing All Might as some tactful individual.
He's learning as the series goes on.
I love
learning.
it. No, not to throw shade at All Might.
Yeah.
I adore him, but
Yeah.
it's just that's the running gag that I can't. I am here.
Again, like it was really tempting to like be that be his introduction, have that be his introduction. But I did it. Like I had the scene written out, and something about it just wasn't
Didn't
sitting
feel
right.
right.
with me.
Okay. Nice.
Like it didn't fit the tone to me. Like even though it should have, I don't really
I don't really know how to explain it better than that.
Okay. Yeah, and then he meets, he's introduced to the new American students. And the piñata was overly anime silly, but it's an anime story.
It's an anime
so it
story.
works.
Yeah. I thought it would be funny. I just kind of wanted, I don't know what got into me. I just wanted an excuse to, like, spin him at a ridiculous, like, I can't tell you guys what was going through my brain at this point. I honestly am not sure anymore. I just had this image in my head of him, like, Ochako using her quirk on him, and then he's, like, spinning around. I'm like, why? This is funny. I'm gonna do it.
Then, of course, they come out about the engagement, which, for me, I was like, huh. Like, I get that, yeah, they've been through a lot, so everyone's just like, yeah, let them dream. But I was surprised there were not more people who were like, bro, you're like freshmen in high school. Calm down. Don't be getting engaged.
I mean, who's gonna tell him off at this point?
Everybody. It's like you're making an emotional decision out of trauma. Like, because that's really what would happen. Like, it's nice that their friends have these responses, but like I feel like at least a couple people.
The adults will be a little more like,
yeah.
They'll give them the side eye a little more, but again, it's like,
Or roll their eyes because they see it all the time because these kids are going through this really intense training together, which means they get close. But then as soon as the real world hits, they realize they don't actually have that much in common. Because as a teacher, you watch it happen. And I can only imagine when you have students who are like this closely engaged with like combat training and stuff, it would happen a lot more frequently, you know?
That said, there is something to be said for the fact that you do make very real connections to people that you share life and death situations with.
Yeah, but
and they've been they for better or for worse, they've been doing that for about a year at this point.
Yeah. Also, at the end of the day, like, adults looking at kids dating, we generally roll our eyes and are like, "Oh my gosh, you're stupid."
You and I, we worked it out.
And I know, we're a rare situation, but everybody gave us that.
Yes,
whether
this is true.
whether it works out or not, there's always going to be 9 times out of 10 the naysayers.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the most unrealistic part. At least when it comes to the character building, that I was like, I feel like at least 30% of the students would be like, y'all are weird, and then the rest
probably some of the Class B students would have, like, the people that know them. I think it's a little different because I want to say that, like, part of it is just they're happy to see both of them happy at this point.
Yeah.
Because, like, they've been through so much shit that they're just like, all right, cool, they found a way to be happy.
Yeah.
Let's be happy for them.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking back, like, in high school, generally, our peers were like, cool, not all of them, but, like, you know, I want to say about 70% of them were like that. And so, like, I see it. I'm just...
And the naysayers, I proved them wrong.
Anyway, that being said, so that part was like, okay. But other than that, you know, it's fun. And, of course, Mina is just embarrassing the crap out of him.
Yep.
Because he's
just like, all right, I'm out.
He can't handle compliments to begin with, and she's just like destroying him. And then, you know, haircut, and then that makes it even worse.
I liked the bit where he found out that Amajiki and Hado were dating.
Yes, that was just hilarious.
That pairing is the one that makes the most sense to me from the big three, and I was just like. It had to be the bit where it's like he's like, how did that happen? And Namajiki's just like, I don't even know. That to me is just like that. I'm like,
he's basically
been
1,000%.
That's how that goes down.
He's basically been kidnapped into dating her.
Basically,
it's like that meme of the extrovert that adopts the introvert and gives them no choice but to be friends.
Yeah.
But
what's interesting is that in the manga, like small spoilers. So Amajiki was the one who approached Hado. Because she had apparently so she's always been like very curious and like up in people's faces and everything, but people were very annoyed with her about that, and like they said that she came across as very pretentious whenever she did.
Yeah, which makes sense because she is.
Yep. So what ended up happening was by the time she got to UA, she shut herself down essentially. And like didn't want to talk to anybody because she didn't want to have them throw it back in her face again. And then Amajiki came up and he was like, hey, so what kind of heroes do you like? Because he remembered that was the question Togata asked him to get him to start talking.
Yeah.
And then she was able to open up again.
Nice.
And she was able to be herself, more or less.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right. So she definitely returns the favor by kidnapping him into dating her.
Poor thing, but he doesn't mind.
Yeah. Opposites.
He minds, but he doesn't.
Yeah. Opposites attract.
Yes.
What else was it? I think my favorite bit was where Kurt signs his cousin's hat.
Oh my god.
He's just like, bro, why? Like, why would you do that to me? And Akira is just taking pot shots at everybody on the side.
Oh, Akira is just the best.
He's just enjoying watching the whole thing.
I think my favorite moment, because you're getting better at like kind of describing a large group of people doing different things and having conversations. I think you're improving in that. At least when I'm listening to the chapters. My favorite little side thing is my favorite little side thing is just little Aerie sitting on his shoulders comparing their hair, and I'm like, I can just see all the conversations going, and she's just sitting there
He's just like playing with his hair.
whoa. I don't know. I love it because that picture. That's another one you need to draw. Little Aerie on his shoulders.
I do need to draw Aerie. I do need to draw Aerie riding around on his shoulders. that would be for a cute photo. So there's just a lot of like just coming down from everything. Like everybody's kind of catching up. Like things have just been happening. I was like, okay, I need to take a couple of chapters to be like, okay, let's stop. let's catch up to where we are.
And and then it kind of like closes with the whole Blake thing, which is
Deku no Uraraka.
They have that moment. That's pretty cute.
Yes.
Little floaty float moment.
Yes. I was like it is about damn time.
I can just see them having that moment and then both hitting their heads on the ceiling.
Yep. No, I included that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
They both hit their heads on the ceiling. They just didn't care.
I love it. That was super sweet.
Yeah.
Then I think the Blake thing is hard for me because I think I've said this before, so I won't go too much into it, but it's like I've been on both sides of that.
Yeah.
So I 100% get where Mina's coming from, and I 100% get where Blake's coming from. Mm-hmm. And it's so
that's kind of how
frustrating.
That's kind of what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like it's like that meme is like, see, I'm playing both sides, so no matter what, I'm coming out on top.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's like
I'm trying to get I've been trying to improve character development in the sense that like I want people from different walks of life to be able to support the same character for different reasons.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And I
at least empathize with them.
Yeah. I appreciate that even though she's kind of mopey and like to the trained eye it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But, most people are just going to like be whatever.
Like Yang notices and she's there for her friend when she needs her. She's not going to push it too much. And then Aries kind of noticed things just because she's used to watching everybody.
Yeah.
Like, cause if you think about it, like she grew up watching all these people.
Oh, yeah.
So like anything that's different from what she expects of them, she's immediately going to be like, huh, what's happening there?
Yep. Aerie kind of comes in clutch to remind Mina, "Hey, cool your jets,
yeah,
girl."
I liked being able to do that bit where Mina kind of asks you, she's like, "Why couldn't you give me another reason to hate her?" She's like, "She doesn't deserve it." Mm-hmm. She's like, and I don't. She's like, more than anything, she's like, I don't want to see you become bitter like you were in my timeline.
Yeah, that's good. That's really
that
good.
was a really big thing for like I think for Aerie especially at this time because like she's. Already Mina acts like very differently to what she was used.
She's come to love the real Mina.
Yeah. Well, like she kind of remembers how Mina used to be like, but for her, it's years and years ago, so it's kind of hard to remember that. But she remembers enough to be like, no, this is how it should have been.
You're supposed to be, yeah.
This is who you were supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't want to see her become something she shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So the let's see. So. This was a little bit of an Easter egg when she mentioned that they had an ally who could like tell read the recent events of the past when they were in the future. That was one of the Hero Course applicant students that happened during the Class A versus B arc. He would have been alive at the time, like at least up to that point. He would have been alive and he would have been helping them.
Cool.
So, like, I didn't name drop him because I didn't want to go like way too out of my way. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was a nice Easter egg to drop.
You haven't introduced this character.
I have introduced.
Oh, you
this
have?
Character. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was. So you remember when it was Class A versus Class B?
Yeah, I
Team
remember
Ruby,
the girl.
Team Ruby fought against a group of 4 students that were all applying to be transferred to the Hero Course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember the girl.
Okay.
I don't remember the rest of them, though.
Okay, yeah. So there was Shinzo. There was the girl who has the blood crystals. There's
I
another
remember
one
those two.
There's another one who becomes faster the more she raises her body temperature, and then the other one was he could touch an object and see 30 minutes into its past.
Nice. Gotta love those force echoes, man.
More or less, yeah.
He's a Jedi.
Psychometry, I think it's called. But yeah. So I was like, that was a. I wanted to kind of show that, like, you know, it wasn't all just the A-listers that were making up the alliance at that time. It's like, no, they had. It's like some of the other guys made it out too.
I see a future Night Eye in our hands.
More or less, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I had fun.
Was he a character that you introduced from someone else, or was he yours?
No, he's mine.
He's yours. Okay.
Yeah. Yuri Asada is the name.
Okay.
Yeah. He was the. Do you remember the drawing he was the dude with the gray skin, like blue eyes and white hair?
I do not
Don't
remember. You're
him?
gonna have to pull that up for
Okay.
me. I have
All
no
right.
idea.
No worries. I'll pull that up.
It's been a while.
Yeah. No, it has been a while. Then, like, again, that's kind of why it's more of an Easter egg than like if I had just had a chapter with that guy, I feel like it would have been a little bit more obvious. So like anybody who just reads through is probably gonna read through that and be like, okay, yeah, cool. They had somebody who could do that. People who listen to this or people who are really paying attention, or they're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's that guy.
Okay. Cool.
So.
All right. Was there anything else you wanted to go over for this chapter?
I think that was it. So, again, as we're moving through this next year, we're going to be doing the alternating schedule. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing the Pokemon Warpath podcast, and then we'll get back to this one, and we'll keep going back and forth on it.
Awesome.
So I hope everybody has a Plus Ultra couple of weeks until we see you on the next Pokemon Warpath, and an even more Plus Ultra month if we don't see you until the next Your Hero Academia podcast.
Tschüss. Utura.
Bye, guys.